Well, thank you, Joy. Wow, I've never been introed like that, so I'm kind of feeling myself right now. That was good. But
Awesome. I said awesome. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yep. I appreciate that, and I don't really consider any of it work because I really, really love what I do. So, yeah. So she told you a little bit about me, my role, my day-to-day role, my everyday role. I lead a team of about 11 folks here in the admissions department at Spalding University, where I manage and lead them. We have some folks that are, the traditional high school counselors, and then I've got a team set for our comebackers, right? Our transfer students, grad students, what have you. So, yeah, that's my day to day. I manage what that looks like, from taking phone calls to emails to giving tours to creating communication plans, fielding questions all day long. I think what's unique though about the comebackers I serve is that commonality and uniqueness is that a lot of them are filled with excitement, but also filled with a lot of anxiety about the process. Right, about getting started. We all hear the adage that, the first step's always the hardest. It's like going to the gym. The hardest part of going to the gym is getting there, right? Once you're there, you're ready to go.
Right.
So I take that into consideration, and I treat every one of my comebackers like that. I know the hardest part for them was completing the application and getting past those barriers in their own brain about, am I going to be able to write a paper? Am I going to have time to write a paper? How am I going to cook dinner? How am I going to do all these things, right? Yeah. So I think if I had to have an overlaying theme about what makes a really good, a counselor or someone who is a liaison or an advocate for these comebackers, is to lean into listening with love. I mean, I feel like if you take that and you lead with that and you listen to them, you can figure out exactly where they are and what those barriers may be. So that's really what's unique about all of them. They're all excited. They've all been wanting to do this for a very long time. And now some mentor or someone has come into their life, or they've had an experience that they're at a point now where they're saying, okay, let's do it. Right. Or their employer is like, you need to do it and we're going to pay for it. So here, let's go. Wanted to talk quickly about the 3 most common challenges that I experience, and you all can probably attest to all 3 of these. The first one being transcripts. A lot of times the comebackers, a lot of them went to school right after high school, then they paused, had families, went back, paused, so forth. So a lot of times you're working with folks who may have 1 to 5 transcripts. And even though we know that that's a part of moving forward in the application process, it can be very overwhelming to folks to have to think about 1989. And that's what I'm speaking about myself, right? When I went to community college right after high school. But I've trained myself and my team to be able to knock that barrier down with getting in front of that and talking to them about this is common. We'll help you. We will walk with you through this process. So that's probably, the biggest barrier, I would say. One of the two biggest barriers. For comebackers, it's how long and how much, right?
Yes.
So yeah, we just walk them through that process. We have to send them links sometimes to help them. We have to talk them through, sometimes you're going to have it emailed. Sometimes they're going to, USPS mail it, so forth. So that's probably the most common challenge. And then also the second most common challenge leading into the second most, unique challenge is cost, financial aid process. And I know David touched a lot on, what he wished he would have known, right? And there are so many moving pieces to financial aid. Is there a grant? Is there loans? Are there scholarships, internships? Of course, that's not part of financial aid, but it's all falls under the money umbrella, right? How am I going to help pay for this? How am I going to get the experiences that I need to help get my foot in the door to a company with the internship, so forth and so on. So, and it can be from, how am I going to pay with tuition? How am I going to pay for books? Do I have fees? We have a huge nursing program at Spalding. So it could be, I have to get scrubs. I have to get shoes. I have to, go to clinicals. What does all that look like? Mm-hmm. And I really make it a priority to stay in touch with the student all the way through, like from the time they apply to how are you going to pay for it? Do we need to work with your employer? Do we need to not only create an educational flight plan, but do we need to kind of create a financial flight plan? And really that helps them early on, because we can talk about this all day long. We speak each other's language, right? But this language is new to them and it's overwhelming, right? And all it takes for them is to call one person. Let's just use financial aid for an example. And for that financial aid person to talk at a level 10 financial aid to that comebacker and just completely overwhelm them, and they're done, right? So I like to get in front of that too, and really try to coach and teach that student on the language of higher ed, of what I think that they will need to be successful when they have to navigate outside of admissions or outside of advising to best serve them. I also serve as a liaison to them all the way through graduation. We are a small university, so I benefit from that in terms of, I think, the relationship. Like I said early on, the leaning in with listening with love from the first conversation or first email or text. I think that student, that comebacker, feels that. And then that starts to build trust. As you build the trust, you build the relationship, and then you mentor that student all the way through if you have to. I would think that the third unique challenge would be and it falls into schooling the person about the transcript, schooling the person about FAFSA. You're really trying to turn that individual into a student again. Mm-hmm. And that can be scary. It's just not the application and the fees and the papers, right? How do I, what does an online class mean? How do I turn my paper in?
Yes.
I'm at the age where we turn papers in. We stapled them and turned them in. That's unheard of now. and it's very stressful for these folks. Yeah. So I think we just need to walk into every conversation with grace and the ability to pause and listen, so we can take note of where they are and where they are in the student realm, right? Because they're not going to get any of this until we help them get into that student mindset again. It's a mindset. All this is a mindset. And people who've been out of higher ed, whether you're staff, faculty, or comebackers, you've been out of higher ed for a while. We kind of speak our own language. We're our own little group, right? And so just want to welcome the comebackers. It's all about, feeling welcome and onboarding them in a manner where you want them to succeed at every point, whether it's just completing the application. That's a success. Let's celebrate. Let's talk about what the next step is, right? I feel like I've said a lot, but really those three unique, you always hear about the transcripts. I might owe someone some money. How do I get it? It's just walking and talking them through there. And I'm a firm believer in clear is kind. Mm-hmm. So I like to lead with the transcript, because sometimes that can be, that can completely create a stop sign for someone. And then making myself and my team aware of all of the opportunity in the surrounding area. Nonprofits, is there scholarships that will help pay for, the past due balances so that these folks can get their transcripts, right? It's always moving parts. And that's what I think we need to remember, so that we don't feel like we've just done our piece and then we move that comebacker on. I feel like we should really take on flighting that flight plan all the way to graduation and all the things that would come in the meantime. And I think if we really do a better job in the forefront, eventually that student is not going to need you anymore, right? They're going to be successful, and that's the whole point. And yeah, so transcripts, financial aid, being able to talk to that student about what does it look like if you do need to borrow, or if you do qualify for FAFSA. What does it look like 3 years from now when you become accountable to pay that back, if that's the situation? And then just, how do I turn this person into a student? How do I provide them with everything they need? If they're in the midst of coming to the next, coming to the next milestone of getting into class, giving them all the tools in their toolbox that they need to be successful, or just being that tool yourself, putting yourself in their toolbox and becoming that tool for them.
So there are a couple of things you said, Jill, that stuck out. I love the idea of leaning in with love, and understanding where these students are, because they are different than our traditional first-time college students. They have a lot going on. They've probably have some earned credit. They have obligation. They have their life experiences that they're bringing to the table. On average, about how many touch points would you say it takes to get folks to just the point of making application, completing the application? Because we know that, hey, we have this idea, we want to go to college, we need this degree or the certification in order to ascend to the next level in our careers, but ... And then suddenly you start to see elements of imposter syndrome set in. You see elements of doubt start to set in. You hear, oh, I'm terrible at math, or I haven't done this in years, or I don't want to start over, so after you kind of rein all of that in, how much convincing does it take to get someone to the place of confidence of being able to successfully complete the application, and then of course celebrate it, as you said?
Yeah, I'm a proponent of celebrating all the wins, no matter how small or how big. I don't know, gosh, I think it really varies, and it depends on the motivation of the comebacker. Yeah. But I would say, if I had to average it out, 5 to 7, maybe, or just 7-ish, maybe 5 to 8, somewhere in that element. I think if it's if you're texting or you're emailing, if that's your means of communication, lots of question asking early on with calls to action every time. I feel like smaller pieces of information followed with a question is always a good way to lead. You never want to data dump on these folks,
right?
Because that just creates all kind of anxiety. I know a lot of times our counselors, they're so thorough and they want to give the student everything they ever thought about wanting to know. Mistake. Because it's just too much and it's overwhelming. So I would say, let's just go with 5 to 10, 7-ish as the median in there in terms of communication. And I like to pick up the phone. I know that the generation now, they like to text, and they like to email, and I respect that. But sometimes you just need to have a conversation with someone.
Mm-hmm. So lots of patience is involved in this, because you're navigating so many different things, whatever is happening in their personal life, and then also trying to get them up to speed with academia and higher ed and how our institutions work and deadlines and things like that. And of course, you never want to just shepherd someone into a decision like this, especially when you think of the financial implications that are ever present on, I think, all of our minds these days as it relates to student loans. Jill, there's one more question I would like to ask, just because I know you have lots of experiences with helping comebackers and meeting. And I really love how you were so intentional on, we're going to walk through this together. We're going to embark on this journey together, and we're going to see it through. Is there a particular story that comes to mind of a comebacker that's faced extraordinary challenges? And could you explain how you help them to navigate that and how you help them to persist through degree completion?
I do actually. I met a wonderful RN about 6 years ago, maybe 5 years ago. She was taking wonderful care of my cousin, who was in the final stages of cancer. And I just noticed her compassion and the amount of dignity that she gave my cousin in these final stages of life. I reached out to her and formed a relationship with her and noticed that she was an RN and did not have her bachelor's degree. And it took me about a month or so to talk her into even considering a BSN, because this young lady had 7 kids. Her husband was in the military, so she took on a lot of being a single mom, right? Because her husband traveled a lot. So she had a lot of barriers. So she was really scared. And she didn't think she could do it, right? So I walked her through it, brought her to campus, introduced her to people, built her confidence. She applied. She completed the RN to BSN program. And I will say to you that there were times where I had to pick up the phone and just tell her to do the work and hang up on her. She's a student now, guys, so don't judge me. But she is now a nurse practitioner practicing here in Louisville, Kentucky. She completed her RN to BSN, and she went on here at Spalding to our MSN FNP program, which is a Master of Science in Nursing. And I'm so in love with her, and she's my inspiration. And she did it, and she had 7 kids by herself a lot of the time. She was she was RN. She probably worked at 3 different hospitals, PRN. I mean, if any of y'all have ever worked with nurses, they're busy folks. And this was through COVID, y'all. I mean, she finished her MP through COVID here, and there were a lot of tears. There were a lot of phone calls, but she did the work. She got the glory. But she did it. And there were times where she had to come to campus early on when she first started her RN to BSN, where we had to pull up her modules on the screens downstairs in our welcome center and navigate that. Because when you're already, she was an RN, she had been an RN for years. It was really hard. She overthought everything because she's an RN, right? She's saving lives. And so a simple assignment really caused her a lot of anxiety because she went 6 degrees of separation on it, right? She was like, and so there were times where she just came to campus and I sat with her and talked her off the ledge and through an assignment. And it took a couple of times to do that until she finally just got it, that she just needed to take a breath and do the work. And she's amazing. And so she's probably she's my inspiration, and I tell her that all the time, and so if she can do it, anybody can, right? Because you can't even imagine doing that. Nursing school, still being a nurse, still working with kiddos, and making it happen. But that's what happens when you surround people with resources and they trust you, that you're going to be there for them, right? And it was some tough love in there too. I had to talk her through some things, but she made it.
That is an amazing story. That's an amazing story. And one, just a testament to your character and your passion for the work that you do and your dedication to the students that you serve. But that's what we are dealing with in real time. These students' desire to achieve certain goals, whether it's just personal or it's something that they need for their career. And just the patience that you need, and just the type of camaraderie and the relationship that's established, understanding that you as a navigator play such a critical role in the success of the students that you work with. I know that's made an imprint on that woman, that student that you described in her life. And obviously you see Jill, she looks like she's beaming right now, just thinking about this person and how rewarding that is for us. There are a number of first generation students. There are a number of people who, like that student, who are mothers who have probably put so many folks before themselves, and then now they're stepping into this time and opportunity to do something for themselves. And that's just something that we shouldn't take lightly. And you see how it pays off in the end, and there's no joy that's greater than that, knowing that you really worked with someone, you helped change the trajectory of not just that student's life, but you think about the impact it has on their family. So Jill, I thank you so much. I do want to leave it open for, is there anyone that has a question for Jill before she logs off?
I put my email in the chat in case someone ever wants to just call me with a question, or if you've got a comebacker who's you're just not sure which way to turn with it. Feel free to use me as a resource at any time.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And that's what this is all about, is really making sure that other navigators and people who are doing the work like yourself have other peers that they can reach out to and bounce off to serve as a sounding board and a brain trust for all the ideas and issues that we go through. So thank you so much, Jill. We really appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you all for listening. Thank you, Taylor. You're so welcome. So welcome. Yes. All right. Well, best of luck to you all.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Bye-bye. All right. So I see in the middle of